Yes, again, so this is the second meeting of our series for intellectual property video webinars and commercialization.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're having technical problems. So why don't we just jump over to Ramesh to start instead?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Yes, okay. Okay, so everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you, Jim, for the introduction. And Jim was actually going to play us a really, really cool video, which is pretty illustrative of what we're talking about today. It was supposed to be a video on Cadbury Caramilk. And if you remember, there was a huge ad campaign back in the 70s and 80s as to how the question was, how would Cadbury get the caramel into the caramel chocolates, right? And I also like to take the opportunity to thank SONAMI, IP Ontario, and Niagara College for giving me this chance to speak on this topic of vital importance, trade secrets. So for today, I'm going to ask whether can you keep a trade secret? A little bit about myself. My company is Raja Technologies Inc. Raja Technologies offers IP consulting services, including IP strategy, patent strategy and services, and trade secret consulting services. I am a US and Canadian patent agent and an accomplished IP professional with over 15 years of experience in IP consulting. I've worked in a wide range of technical fields, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, the Internet of Things, and mechanical device inventions. In all of my engagements, I seek to align clients' IP strategy with their overall business strategy, and I also make sure to deliver IP services in line with their overall business strategy. And in my engagements, I seek to consistently deliver exceptional value to clients. So for today's talk, I'm going to start by giving a brief introduction to the topic of trade secrets. I'm going to also outline the impact of Industry 4.0 on trade secrets. I'm going to go over the topic of IP flight risk, the value of trade secrets, and the costs of trade secret theft events. I'm going to briefly discuss some legal protections available to trade secret holders. I'm going to talk about the biggest threats to trade secrets faced by organizations. I'm going to talk about different types of practical strategies or different aspects of practical strategies. In my first part, I'm going to talk about whether to patent an innovation or keep it as a trade secret, and also some different mechanisms for trade secret protection. So, what is a trade secret? A trade secret allows an owner of the trade secret to derive economic value due to secrecy. And this piece of information must be the subject of reasonable measures to maintain secrecy. It goes without saying, but trade secrets cannot cover information that is already available in the public domain. This could be important because if a competitor independently discovers your trade secret and makes it publicly available, then your trade secret is lost. You'll notice that ownership and economic value is tied to secrecy. And examples of reasonable measures include NDAs, physical and cybersecurity measures, and it also includes the need to guide and inform relevant parties such as employees, contractors, and partners. Trade secrets can cover a broad range of information such as technical, business, and marketing information. Examples of technical, business, and marketing information can include software or source code, algorithms, data, supplier lists, cost structures, strategy documents, designs, specifications. So as you can see, it's pretty broad. Can also cover the trial and error process, which was employed to create a product or a service, and any vulnerabilities in the delivery, for example, of products and services. Now, some well-known examples of trade secrets being used in manufacturing. I'm sure you all are familiar with the example of the Coca-Cola recipe. So Coca-Cola keeps the recipe to produce Coke a trade secret. Trade secrets are also extensively employed in the semiconductor industry. For example, the TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, has an extensive and detailed trade secret protection program. Now, a major trend in advanced manufacturing is the adoption of Industry 4.0. And a critical part of Industry 4.0 is digitalization. So what is digitalization? According to a definition provided by Gartner, digitalization is the use of digital technologies to change a business model and provide new revenue and value producing opportunities. It is the process of moving to a digital business. And some examples which are relevant to advanced manufacturing include IoT, or the employment of IoT technologies, Internet of Things technologies, and also technologies to enable deployment of remote and hybrid work. Digitalization can deliver huge rewards, improve productivity, improve flexibility, and it includes the capability for organizations to harness the power of analytics and AI and machine learning. However, these rewards come with trade secret risks. Firstly, because sensors are smaller and cheaper than ever, storage is cheaper than ever, the growth of volume of data captured and stored has grown massively. And with that, the growth of trade secrets. So for example, where a technician would have gone into a factory floor and recorded readings from meters, now images of a process can be captured, video and audio recordings of a process can be captured and stored. So there's been this massive growth of data, right? There is also an increased accessibility of data. Data is being made more accessible than before, for example, via the cloud. This is great because it enables an easier sharing and dissemination of data, which can improve productivity and flexibility, but also means that data is more easily accessed by hackers. Finally, this digital data is being stored in a format that easily facilitates transferability or stealability. For example, a 65,000-page Microsoft Word document only occupies 1 gigabyte of storage. And right now, terabyte flash drives are common and cheap, right? And while I was doing the research for this presentation, I found this great quote: "An entire connected business can be copy-pasted and stolen thanks to digitalization." What are the implications for trade secrets? Firstly, we have to realize that digitalization is here to stay. Can't run from it. If you don't do it, your competitors are going to be doing it, and you're going to be left behind. So there is a need to adapt to digitalization. This heightens the importance of cybersecurity, and SONAMI will be doing a presentation on cybersecurity on the 21st of February. It also points to the possibility of using, or necessity even, of using automation to record and manage trade secrets. Since so much data has been created, it's hard to keep track and manage. Now, I'm also going to briefly go over IP flight risk. What is IP flight risk? IP flight risk is the risk of losing valuable IP from a company. In the case of trade secrets, if secrecy is lost, then IP flight has occurred. Digitalization increases IP flight risk, as should be evident. Now, NDAs, confidentiality agreements, are a good start to reducing IP flight risk, but they are not nearly enough for any meaningful protection or reduction of IP flight risk. Now, with regard to the value of trade secrets, it's been shown that advanced manufacturing companies are heavily dependent on trade secrets to drive value. Trade secrets can confer tangible value on an advanced manufacturing company. For example, TSMC, which I mentioned earlier, has a market cap north of $600 billion US. Trade secrets can also confer intangible value on an organization. If an organization has good, strong trade protection programs in place, This builds trust of customers, suppliers, and investors, and it can also enhance the reputation of that organization. And trade secret protection is correlated to investment, both internally and externally. From an internal perspective, if there is strong trade secret protection, then internal parties, such as management, are more likely to invest in R&D and innovation. Also, for similar reasons, external parties, such as investors, are more likely to invest in R&D or in an organization as a whole if they know their investments are going to be protected. What is the cost of a trade secret theft event? In the European Union, it was estimated that a single trade secret theft event can cost between 50 to 200 million euros in managing the crises that may result from a single event. There is also a broader economic impact of trade secret theft. It has been estimated that trade secret theft can cause the GDP of an advanced economy such as Canada to drop between 1% and 3%. There are direct impacts due to trade secret theft, right? Now, what are these direct impacts referred to? They are direct financial losses attributable to a trade secret theft, such as lost sales, lost revenue, lost market share, lost profits and opportunities. And there are also costs of activities such as investigation, enforcement, and cleanup. There are also indirect factors or indirect impacts due to factors which impact a company's long and short-term ability to compete in the marketplace. These include things like loss of know-how, loss of trust, loss of reputation, right? So these tend to be, the costs tend to be more long-term in nature and can account for up to 90% of costs versus the 10% for the cost due to direct impact. Digitalization can increase the cost of a trade secret event. As I mentioned before, in a single breach, a lot of data can be downloaded, more data can be downloaded than ever before, and more data is accessible than ever before. And it really brings home the point that an entire business, connected business, can be copy-pasted and stolen. Now, what are some legal protections available to holders of trade secrets? There are criminal prosecution avenues. These include in Canada, Section 391 of the Criminal Code and Section 19 of the Security Information Act. In the US, you have the Economic Espionage Act, the EEA, and potentially the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the CFAA, which are both federal acts. And in the UK, trade secret theft in the context of economic espionage can be criminally prosecuted via the National Security Act. In terms of civil protections, in Canada, civil case law lays down the basis for different types of penalties, including injunctive relief, damages, and accounting for profits. In the US, the DTSA, the Defend Trade Secrets Act, allows for an owner of a trade secret to sue in federal court. The UTSA, which has been enacted in various states in slightly varying embodiments, allows for the owner of a trade secret to sue in a state court. In the European Union, the Trade Secrets Directive seeks to harmonize civil protection regimes within the EU for trade secret misappropriation. And one example of the implementation of the EU Trade Secrets Directive, which was carried out pre-Brexit, is the UK Trade Secrets Regulation. Now, some well-known examples we've seen in Canada. The first of these is the gas stops case, which took place in 2009 and was heard before the Ontario Supreme Court, and is considered the leading case on trade secrets. And it outlines the need for employers to guide and inform employees. An ongoing criminal case is that of Yusheng Wang, a Hydro-Quebec employee, who was accused in 2022 by the RCMP and charged under Section 19 of the Security Information Act and Section 391 of the Criminal Code for trade secret theft and misappropriation from Hydro-Quebec. Now, what are some of the biggest threats to trade secrets? Threats can come from a variety of sources. can come from insiders, hostile nation states, hacktivists, organized crime, syndicates seeking ransom, and competitors. Of these threats, insiders are one of the most dangerous threats. They're a huge threat because insiders have unique access to and knowledge of use of the trade secrets. How are the trade secrets being used? Insiders can pose a threat through malice, so malicious activities such as theft, misappropriation of trade secrets, either for personal financial gain, for example, or to cause damage to the organization, right? Insiders can also pose a threat through incompetence, through, for example, inadvertent disclosure and providing opportunities for hackers to breach, for example, clicking on links in a phishing attack. I'm going to go through some practical strategies for trade secret theft and for trade secrets as a whole, which could be pretty important, right? And the first of these is whether to patent an innovation or to keep it as a trade secret. It's important to realize that every innovation begins life as a trade secret, right? So the question is then, okay, should it be kept as a trade secret or should it be patented? I'm just going to quickly recap what a patent is. A patent gives the holder the right to exclude other parties from the use of a claimed invention for a limited term, which is 20 years in Canada, and the patent usually is disclosed via publication. So some different considerations as to whether you should patent an innovation or keep it as a trade secret. Firstly, is the subject matter of the innovation even patentable? For example, algorithms, data, and formulas are not patentable, so they're more appropriately protected using trade secrets. Second, the term of protection. In theory, trade secret protection is unlimited as long as it is not disclosed or, for example, independently discovered by another party. However, patent protection term is limited to 20 years, as I explained earlier. Next, is there the risk of disclosure or reverse engineering? Patenting leads to disclosure, but protection is still available. However, in the case of a trade secret, this secret is not protected against, for example, lawful reproduction through reverse engineering, independent discovery by another party, or inadvertent disclosure by, for example, an insider. Another consideration is time to obsolescence. It may not be worth protecting something for 20 years when it will be obsolete within 3 years. So you may want to rely on trade secret protection then. Costs is another consideration. Patent protection is not cheap, yes, but a word of caution, effective trade secret protection is not cheap either. The impact on company culture should also be considered. Trade secrets impose a restriction of the spread of knowledge, so for example, if a trade secret is kept within a core group in the organization, then that's a restriction on the spread of knowledge, right? Which can hamper a firm's R&D efforts and innovation. There's also a question of how employees feel, because employees don't like their access to firm knowledge being limited, and that can affect company culture. So firms have to balance these two competing needs, this need for knowledge protection and the need for knowledge to be copied and shared to foster R&D, innovation, creativity, and trust, right? And it points to the importance of training and explaining why there is a need to protect knowledge within a group of people, right? Now, these issues don't arise with patents because the knowledge is freely available for everyone. A final consideration is in many jurisdictions around the world, they operate on a first-to-file basis with respect to patents, right? So if an organization elects to keep an innovation as a trade secret and not patent it, that may result in the loss of a secret if a competitor discovers it independently, and it also may result in the loss of a patenting opportunity if the competitor decides to patent it first. Now, it's not necessarily an either or, right? There is room for hybrid strategies where you can combine patent and trade secret protection. So, for example, for a process, you may want to patent broad functional blocks, but keep specifics as trade secrets. I'm also going to go through protection of trade secrets, right? I mentioned before that NDAs on their own are insufficient. The reason for this is once something is disclosed under NDA, effectively the train has left the station. It's now out of the organization's control, and it is, in the control of the party which has received the trade secret. And if their controls are not great, or if they decide to be malicious, that could hurt the organization, right? And I'm going to outline a framework for protection of trade secrets, which should be relied on even before you just use an NDA, right? First question is what? What are your trade secrets? And what are your important trade secrets? So there's a need to identify and prioritize your trade secrets. As someone I know, Todd Bailey, who is the general counsel of Scale AI, mentioned on LinkedIn, if you don't know what your trade secrets are, you're not protecting anything at all. The next question that should be asked is who? Who can access the trade secret? Can it even be released external to the organization? And if it's kept internally, should it be limited to certain groups of people within the organization? Who within the organization has the need to know the trade secrets? When? When should a trade secret be recorded and protected? The answer, as soon as possible. The earlier that a trade secret is recorded and protected, the easier it makes it for enforcement later on. For where? Two questions are covered under this, right? Where should trade secrets be stored? Should they be stored, for example, within a company's internal servers or with a trusted third-party service provider? Then questions have to be asked. Where are those trusted third-party service providers' servers located? Which brings the question of data sovereignty into consideration as well. So these are some different things to consider with that aspect of where. Another aspect of where is which jurisdictions' rules should be used as a guideline, right? And the answer is to adapt to the jurisdiction with most stringent rules. And we see a similar approach even with data privacy. A lot of companies tend to adapt to GDPR because that is the most stringent rules. Finally, why? Why should trade secrets be protected? So there's a need to explain the importance of trade secrets to the organization and the organization value. And there's also maybe a need to explain the consequences of trade secret theft and misappropriation or inadvertent disclosure. The case of theft and misappropriation, it's good to explain that criminal or civil prosecution may result. The case of inadvertent disclosure, there could be loss of trust, loss of reputation, and so on. A good three-step approach to think about with regard to protection. The first step is to create trade secret policies. And these policies should aim to institute an IP-aware mindset via what I'm going to call the 3 Ps: proactivity, processes, and people. Should aim to encourage employees to be proactive in recognizing that trade secrets are being created. The policy should also set out what are the proactive policies, that is, deterrent or protection processes, and reactive policies. What happens if there's a breach, right? What do you need to do in the event of a breach? It should also set out who the people are responsible for implementing trade secret policy within the organization. With regard to securing ownership, for example, there could be specific clauses in agreements, and might even be useful for the organization to consider warning clauses, such as if a trade secret is stolen or misappropriated, it could result in criminal prosecution under Section 391 of the Criminal Code, for example. It's also useful to maybe do due diligence on another party before releasing a trade secret, even under NDA, to that other party. The final step is running periodic IP mining and discovery sessions. And the aim here is to get trade secrets which might be residing in employees' heads or on a piece of paper, written down on a piece of paper on a desk somewhere, into a more centralized sort of arrangement where it can then be recorded and protected, right? And the trade secret policies should outline who is going to run these IP mining and discovery sessions and how these trade secrets which are discovered during these sessions should be recorded. So in conclusion, trade secrets have both tangible and intangible value in advanced manufacturing, and that value is tied to secrecy. As we've seen, digitalization increases the risks to trade secrets. With regard to IP flight is tied to secrecy. Loss of secrecy leads to loss of the trade secret. Trade secret theft is costly, and the indirect costs of trade secret theft are much, much greater than the direct costs. There are multiple criminal and civil prosecution avenues in multiple jurisdictions. Threats to trade secrets can arise from a variety of sources, but insiders are especially problematic. And finally, with regard to some practical strategies, there are a series of considerations that an organization should take into account when trying to decide between patenting an innovation or keeping it as a trade secret. There might also be room for a hybrid strategy that is a combination of patenting and trade secrets. Finally, there are a series of considerations and steps that people should take into account when settling on a protection regime for trade secrets. I'm now going to open the floor to questions and discussion.
So Ramesh.
Oh, hi,
Oh.
Jim. Yep. Okay, sorry.
Okay, there is a question on the chat.
Okay. Let me go back to Zoom quickly.
It's from a manufacturing industry perspective. Most IP in an organization would be a mix of patents and trade secrets. And that's kind of a question. It says there would be some processes, practices that can't be patented.
Right.
Yeah, so it's two statements for two questions. So.
Okay, and I think I kind of covered this as well. I've got the slide back up. Yeah, some things, and may I know who the question is from, Jim?
Oh, it's from Arun Venkataraman.
Oh, hi.
Sorry,
Arun.
sorry.
Arun, yeah, hi. Yeah,
Hi,
it was just an observation, like more than a question. Because, oftentimes you have some obvious things which cannot be applied for a patent. So there has to be some ways and means in which they have to be protected as a trade secret within the organization, right?
Yes, yes. So yeah, and I kind of outlined this, right, as well, because there are, like you're right, there are some things that just aren't patentable. So now it's important to have a process in place to record these things as trade secrets. And like I said, there could also be a hybrid strategy, right? You could combine patent and trade secret protection. You might want to cover the, for example, the main blocks or the idea, but some of these more specific factors and features, you might want to keep it as a trade secret, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I asked this question and just after that you answered it on the slide. So I didn't want to go back and delete it. I'm sorry.
No problem at all, Aaron. No problem.
Sorry, yeah, it's definitely worth noted, Arun. It's a very tricky situation when you're walking the line between patents and trade secrets. For example, when you're doing a patent, you're obliged to disclose enough information that a competent practitioner could then take that information forward and derive how you actually achieve what the patent is doing. But you don't have to give them step-by-step directions of how to do that. And that you'll want to make sure that you're not disclosing them. An example, I worked with a company that made wire cutters for helicopters, and they had a specific process for heat treating steel to make it hard enough to cut, conductive wires strung across fields, right? And they didn't have to actually say what the heat treat ratings were or how they did the heat treating. They just had to say that they had horizontally opposed cutters, in a throat shape. So yeah, you have to be careful with all of your information, obviously.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Jim, many times with clients, I tell them, let's patent the process, but you don't need to include your lines of code or your software, right? If you've used software to do something, you don't have to include that software in your patent, right? You can just describe the blocks, the high-level blocks, right?
Yeah, and is it also okay to say maybe let's say there is an industrial process and certain reaction takes place at a particular temperature. You don't have to reveal the exact temperature in the in the draft of the patent, right? It could be a range, but you
Yes.
can keep it as a trade secret internally that this is the optimal temperature at which I get the performance or the final
Yeah.
product that I need, right? So I think these are the strategies that I think the activity which you just like mentioned, Ramesh, the IP
Yep.
mining, which has to be done. So I think that's where you kind of need to identify what has to be a trade secret and what has to go on the draft of the patent. So, I
Yep.
mean, it's quite an interesting activity, that sounds
Yeah.
like fun, but it's much needed, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And just for the general perspective as well, particularly in manufacturing, so much of what you do in actually making parts, you maybe even get build to print type parts that you're supplying to another company. They're giving you the prints, they're telling you what the part should look like after you're completed. But if you're doing heat treating, if you're doing welding, if you're doing milling of components as well, there's always distortion that's involved. And, it very much matters whether you cut the holes first or whether you hog out the materials first, in terms of making sure that when it comes out, it meets all the definitions of the drawing. As if that's not agreed to with the customer, then that's your IP. You can use that for that part and any other part that you're making. And if they try to get a second source that's cheaper, good luck, right? It's your advantage to keep that all to yourself. So if people don't mind, I'm just going to try to recapture the there's another question. A question or a statement. It says, is there any general limitations in how broad a patent can be? What's a good rule of thumb? Is it just what the patent office will allow? And before I turn it over to Ramesh, I'll say it is kind of up to the patent office to decide what is allowed. It's not there's no specific guidelines. You're always going to be in kind of a negotiation with the patent office to determine how broad or how narrow the claims will be on your patent. So how much you can actually protect versus what might have been prior art. And then some of the things that the goal of the patent office is always to try to limit your protection as much as they can. And then you have to push back to them and say, well, this is why I think this really is unique. And I need to have it in order to make this work for me in the future.
Okay.
Ramesh?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Jim. In patent practice, in general, your patent claims have to be supported by what's in the specification and drawings. If it's not supported by what's in the specification and drawings, it's highly unlikely that, the Canadian IP Office, the US Patent Office, the European Patent Office is going to allow your patent claims. They are going to ask you to make amendments, right? And it's the question of, breadth of claims that really that also depends on the legal regimes in each jurisdiction, right? So this is another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
So I'm just going to ask if I can take the screen back from Ramesh.
Sure.
I'm going to try one more time. Unfortunately, I had trouble sharing earlier, but I'm going to try and see if I can share my screen. Not that one. Oh, how can I never see? Oh, here's one.
Oh, there's another question. There's another question that just came in, Jim.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to pull it up. No, I'm not seeing my chats. Hang on. Oh, here it is. How do we protect algorithms in Industry 4.0 applications? How to protect algorithms when working with vendors and contractors? So this is a two-part question from Rohan Barua to everyone. So with regard to protection of algorithms in Industry 4.0 applications, you may want, there's a variety of ways of doing this, right? And I think a good example is to look at what Google did, right, with regard to their search algorithm, right? They disclosed their algorithm at a high level, but didn't disclose any specific parameters. And when they started to implement their search engine, they would come up with different parameters to run the algorithm, and they kept those parameters as trade secrets. So that could be one way, right? How to protect algorithms in Industry 4.0 applications. There's a variety of ways depending on the specific context, right? Now, how to protect algorithms when working with vendors and contractors. There might be various ways you want to try to achieve this, right? So, for example, when you work with a vendor or a contractor, you might say, okay, for this part of the processing, we're using my algorithm, which is I want to keep as a trade secret. I don't want this to leave my organization at all. And because I don't want this to leave the organization at all, I'm going to perform this step internally, right? So if it's a multi-step process, step 5 in the process is performed internally, right? You might define your scope of work as such, right? So that's one possible way. Another possible way is not to disclose any of the parameters you're going to use. And there's also, okay, there's an NDA, here's an NDA, right? But with and the policy could outline, a process for due diligence before releasing it under NDA. And then within the NDA, you could put in warning clauses to your vendor or contractor and say, look, any theft or misappropriation could result in criminal and civil prosecution. So these are all different ways you might want to think about. Rohan.
Hey, thanks, Ramesh. Yeah, definitely this was very helpful. I'm pretty new into this space, and especially with trade secrets. But then we have different projects where we are developing algorithms, but then we need to engage with different contractors at different stages, as well as we have clients who are interested in protecting the trade secrets. So this is something definitely very interesting to learn, and thanks again.
Welcome, Rohan. Which organization are you from, Rohan? Just quickly.
So I work as a project manager in the McMaster Manufacturing Research Institute.
I see.
More specifically, we are in advanced manufacturing, and then now we are working with predictive maintenance applications, especially in Industry 4.0 domain area, I would say.
Okay, that's very cool. One thing to keep in mind, there's a very good government program, and Jim, you probably know about this. It's called Elevate IP. You might have heard of it, Rohan. And one of the steps in the tier 2 activities in Elevate IP is trade secret strategy, right? And that's covered 100% under Elevate. So that might be something you want to direct, clients or partners to, right? To get into Elevate IP and get a trade secret strategy going, right? And a continuation from that, you might, the outcome from there might be, all right, some trade secrets need to be developed or stored internally. We can't even release them to a trusted service provider, right? And stored on a server somewhere. There's another good government program called CDAP, the Canada Digital Adoption Program. They allow, what that does is they allow you to build out a plan for free if your client or partner meets certain conditions. So the client or partner can build out the plan for free, virtually free at least. And step 3 is to implement that plan. They can take a loan of up to $100,000 from BDC, which is free for the first 2 years. So these are all useful things to point clients and partners to. We can discuss.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we can discuss further, right? I think.
Sure.
Do you mind? Never mind, Jim. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll connect maybe later.
We'll connect. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rohan.
Okay. So we have 10 minutes left. So we're still okay in terms of time. So if people have other questions, having lost my opportunity to share the screen at the beginning, I'll bypass most of the slides that I wanted to present, other than just to remind you that we will be doing additional events within the current, 2 months coming up. We'll be doing 5 in-person workshops. So we will be doing sessions 2 in Toronto, 1 here at Niagara College in Welland, and then 1 in London at Fanshawe College, another one in Peterborough at Fleming College. And then we have 2 more webinars. As of course, Ramesh said, we do have a session on February 21st where we'll be taking a look at IP and proprietary data in the digital world. So, of course, lots and lots of sensitivity to cybersecurity and ensuring that you've got your environment protected for your employees, for your data, for your operations, but focusing in again on the data part. And how do you make sure that your critical data is maybe double or triple secured so that you don't have people coming in, looking around, gaining access to your system and then just pulling out your data, because there's no guarantee you'll ever get that back. February 15th, we'll be talking about leveraging IP when you're doing collaborative development. Again, knowing that, no single company holds all the keys to intellectual property, holds all the keys to innovation. Being able to partner with other companies on development, and you see this more and more with the bigger companies, means that you have to have a way to structure the IP that's being generated in those projects. So on February 15th, we'll having a little bit of a discussion about that. I'm partnering with a speaker from the National Manufacturing Supercluster for that program as well. So you'll be able to learn some of the benefits financially to collaborating with other companies as well. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing my screen and then turn it back over to our attendees if you have any questions remaining. Questions? No. There's no more questions. I'm going to share a gem that I picked up, and you would have seen it in Ramesh's presentation.
So you gentlemen want the secret of how Cadbury gets the soft, creamy caramel inside the chocolatey pockets of the caramel bar?
Yes, we know you have it, and my people are prepared to pay 50 million.
Not enough.
75 million for the caramel secret.
Not enough.
100 million, tops.
Sorry.
I'm willing to pay anything.
Anything.
Sorry, and just, of course, the moral of the story being, how much is your IP worth? Well, you don't know until it gets tested in the market. And if you don't own it, then there's no way to test it in the market. So no other questions? Yeah, Randy's put up a comment. I remember those ads. You almost are dating yourself if you put something like that up. There was a whole series of them. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. We certainly appreciate your time in joining us. As a reminder, we will be having additional sessions. If you want to find out more about SONAMI, then you can join us for those, and we'll make sure that we get the screen sharing right at the beginning so that we can let you know who we are. Just the short story, SONAMI is a network of 9 colleges and 2 universities that's managed by Niagara College. And SONAMI is, as was listed on the first slide of my presentation, being funded by IPON to deliver services for commercialization and support on intellectual property. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining.